Hello everyone. Today we will discuss the basics of memory organization. Firstly, in this class we will discuss different characteristics of the memory. After that, we will show you the memory hierarchy in a computer along with the physical types of the memory. Later, we will describe the design of a RAM and ROM chip. Followed by, we will discuss how to implement the memory unit from multiple RAM and ROM chips. Finally, we will show you a design of a magnetic disk. In this slide, we are going to discuss different characteristics of the memory. The first characteristics of the memory is the location. That means where the memory resides. Now, it can reside in the CPU like cache memory, or it can be internal like main memory, or it can be external like secondary memory or auxiliary memory. The second characteristics of the memory is the unit of data transfer. In case of main memory, the unit of data transfer is words. That means the data are transferred word-wise to and from main memory. In case of secondary memory, the unit of data transfers are blocks. That means the data are transferred block-wise to and from the secondary memory. And blocks are in general consist of many words. The third characteristics of the memory is the access method. That means how we are going to get into the address of any memory location, memory content. Now there are precisely four type of access methods are there. First access method is the associative access method. In this kind of access method, data are accessed only by checking the content of a portion of the word, and access time is independent of the location of the data. Like in this example, the data is 00110001. Now in this case, we do not need to know the overall data. If we know only the portion of the word or the data which is here 001, only by checking these three bits we can precisely get into the location of the data. Cache memory is an example where it uses associative access method. The second access method is the random access method. In case of random access method, we basically get into the exact memory location of the data. So if the data content reside in the memory location 2003, we directly go into the location 2003 and access the data. Here also the access time is independent of the location of the data, and RAM or our main memory precisely use this random access method. The third access method is the direct access method. Direct access method consists of two passes. In the first pass, we get into the location, get into the block location of a data just by knowing the block number, and after we get into the block where the data resides, we then perform a sequential search within the data to get into the exact location of the data. Magnetic disk is an example where we use direct access method. So here firstly we with the help of a block number we get into the block where the data resides, and after getting into the block we perform a sequential search to get into the exact location where the data resides. The fourth method is the sequential method. In this method, we start from the beginning of the memory location, and we read each words in an order sequentially, and obviously due to that reason here access time is dependent on the location of the data, and magnetic tape uses this kind of access method. Now the fourth characteristics of the memory is its performance. Now the performance of a memory can be measured with the help of three metrics. First metric is the access time. Access time is the time required to reach into the location of the data after getting the address of it from CPU. Now second metric is the memory cycle time. That is it is actually the overall time to get the data into the CPU. That means it is a combination of data access time as well as data retrieval time. So access time, it will get to the location of the data, and retrieval time is the time after from getting the data from the memory to the CPU. The third metric of the performance is the transfer rate. That means the rate at which data is being transferred. Like the normal magnetic disk, the data transfer rate is slow, where in the SSD the data transfer rate is high. So this is the interconnection among different memory units with the CPU. CPU performs all the arithmetic and logical operations within the computer with the help of control unit, where main memory, as you can see in this picture, it directly communicates with the CPU via bidirectional link. The auxiliary memory or the secondary memory communicates indirectly with the CPU via main memory. And the fourth component, cache memory, it is a smaller memory. It stays between the main memory and the CPU, and it is always faster than the main memory. And that is why if the same component stays both in the main memory and the cache memory, it is always better to access the data from the cache memory, because cache access time is always less. Now, in this class, we will study memory organization, and it is the study of development of a memory management system in which memory units are organized in such a manner that it improves the overall data access time with less cost. In this picture, this you can see this is the memory hierarchy. Now in this memory hierarchy, magnetic tape sits at the bottom and the CPU register sits at the top. And as you go from the bottom to top in the memory hierarchy, you can see the cost keep on increasing. So magnetic tape is the least costly, and whereas CPU register is the costliest. And as you can see in this diagram, the area of the magnetic tape is much more larger, whereas you can see in this picture the size of the register block is much more smaller. That is to that is to refer that with the same amount of money you can arrange a bigger size of magnetic tape, whereas the size of the CPU register will be much more less with the same amount of price. Similarly, if you look from the top to bottom, you can see that the CPU register access time is minimum, whereas the magnetic tape has a huge access time. So that is why CPU register is faster, and as you go from the top to bottom, the access time keep on increasing, and the magnetic tape access time is the maximum. Now, depending on the physical materials, memory can be of different types. First one is the semiconductor memory. That means memory consists of semiconductors. Semiconductor memory can be of two types, RAM and ROM. Now, RAM can be of two types, SRAM and DRAM. That means static RAM and dynamic RAM. Similarly, ROM can be three types, programmable ROM, PROM, erasable programmable ROM, EEPROM, and EEPROM. That means electrically erasable programmable ROM. Similarly, magnetic memory is of two types, magnetic disk and magnetic tapes, and optical memory is of type CD or DVD. Now here you can see the memory made of magnetic or optical part are precisely auxiliary memory. As we discussed, RAM is of two types, static RAM and the dynamic RAM. Now the dynamic RAM is built from semiconductor, and semiconductor consists of capacitors. These capacitors store the bit information while charging. Now capacitor discharges, and that is why it needs to be charged periodically. Now the construction is simple and less costly, as well as per bit area are also less, but it is slow due to periodic refreshing, and main memory is built of DRAM or dynamic RAM. Now what is static RAM? Static RAM is made of transistors, and these transistors form flip-flops, and flip-flops store bit informations. Now flip-flops does not need any discharge, does not have any discharging, so it doesn't need any refreshing. Construction is complex and more costly, and per bit area are also more, but it is fast as there is no refreshing is required, and cache memory is built of static RAM. Now what is ROM? ROM is read-only memory. And what is the characteristics of the ROM? Firstly, you can only read from the ROM, you cannot write. It is only written once by the manufacturer, and writing is expensive too. The next characteristic of the ROM is it is non-volatile. That is why when you turn off your machine, the ROM data is not get erased during that time. Third characteristic is the microprogram. That means the data content in the ROM are microprogrammed content. The fourth characteristic is that it contains the Bootstrap loader program. The Bootstrap loader program is the program which is responsible for loading of the operating system into the main memory while you turn on the machine, and it precisely start booting of the system. It also contains many subroutines. And there are precisely three types of ROM. First one is the programmable ROM, PROM. The next one is the erasable programmable ROM, which is basically erased by ultraviolet rays. And third one is the EEPROM, electrically erasable programmable ROM, which you can erase cost effectively electrically. Now, what is cache memory? As you can see in this picture, that it sits between CPU and main memory, and it is a fast memory with smaller size. Why smaller size? Because cache memory is much more costlier than main memory. That is why with the same amount of price, you can accommodate only a small amount of cache memory. And it is made of SRAM. Now the cache memory can stay in the CPU chip like L1, L2 cache, or it can be in the module like L3 cache. Now, most frequently used item of the main memory stored in the cache memory for faster access by the CPU. CPU checks firstly in the cache memory for the data content. If it finds the data content into the cache memory, that means it is cache hit, and it helps to faster access the data item. But if it fails to find the data item in the cache memory, that means it is a cache miss. In that case, CPU collects the data from main memory and copy the data into the cache for future references. In this case of cache miss, the access time is obviously slower. In this slide, we are going to describe a RAM chip and a ROM chip. So for that purpose, let us consider a RAM chip of size 128 cross 8. That means there exist 128 number of memory locations in the RAM chip, and as 128 equals to 2 to the power 7, so there will be 7 address lines, or the address bus size will be of 7 bits. Similarly, the data content is of size 8, so data bus will be of size 8 bits, or the number of data lines will be 8. Now this is the diagram, chip diagram of a RAM. Here you can see it has a 5 input: chip select 1 CS1, chip select 2 CS2 bar, read signal RD, write signal WR, and 7 bit address bus AD7. And the output of the RAM chip is 8 bit data bus. Now here, if you look at the CS1 and CS2 bar, then one thing you need to focus, that only when CS1 will be 1 and CS2 bar will be 0, then only a RAM chip will be active, and then only you can perform a read and write operation from the RAM chip. In this table, if you look into the first two row, then as you can see, as chip select 1 is 0, that is why it doesn't matter what the other field value are, it will always be in the inactive or deactivated state. Similarly, when the chip select 1 will be 1, but when the chip select 2 will be 1, when both chip select 1 and chip select 2 will be 1, then also the RAM chip will be in disable state. Just you can see the third row in the table. So, only when the chip select 1 will be 1 and chip select 2, the CS2 bar will be 0, then only the RAM chip will be active, and then only you can perform read and write operation. That is why if you look into the fourth row, when CS1 is 1 and CS2 is 0, in that case, as read and write both are 0 0, that time RAM chip will not perform any action. But when CS1 is 1 and CS2 bar is 0, and in that case, if RD is 1 and WR is 0, in that case, you will perform the read instruction. And what you will do, data will be loaded into the RAM from the data bus. And similarly, when CS1 is 1 and CS2 bar is 0, in that case, if the read signal is 0 and write signal is 1, in that case, data will be loaded into the data bus from the RAM chip. Below two lines are explaining the read and write function in a RAM chip. Similarly, let us consider a ROM chip of size 512 cross 8. As there are 512 data contents are there, so address locations will be there of 512, which is equals to 2 to the power 9. So the address bus size will be of 9 bits. So the number of address lines will be 9. Similarly, the data content is of size 8, so data bus size will be of 8 bits or number of data lines will be 8. And this is how a ROM chip will look like. Here, there is no need of read and write signal because it can only perform one job, which is read. And here also, when the chip select CS1 will be 1 and chip select 2 bar CS2 will be 0, then only a RAM chip will be active, and then only you can read any memory location content with the help of the address bus 89. And after reading, you will load the data from the ROM chip into the data bus. In this slide, we are going to configure a memory unit with the help of the RAM and ROM chip just explained in the previous slide. Suppose in this example, we are going to configure a memory unit of 512 bytes of RAM and 512 bytes of ROM. So if we consider the RAM and ROM chip from the previous slide, then we need 4 RAM chip of size 128 bytes to form a RAM unit of 512 bytes. And we need only one ROM chip of 512 bytes for constructing this memory unit. Now, as you can see, there is a 128 bytes in the ROM unit, ROM chip. So obviously, 128 number of memory locations are there in the RAM chip, and you need 7 address buses to select any one of the 128 addresses from the RAM chip. So for that purpose, we are going to use address line 1 to 7 to select any one of the location from the RAM chip. Now again, as there is a 4 number of RAM chips and you need to select any one of the 4 RAM chips, so obviously for that purpose you need 2 address lines to select any one of the 4 RAM chips. Yeah, so here we are going to use the address line 9 and 8 to select any one of the 4 RAM chips, and for that purpose we are going to use a 2 cross 4 decoder. If the input to the decoder is 00, in that case we are going to select the RAM chip 1. If the input to the decoder is 01, we are going to select the RAM chip 2. If the input to the decoder is 10, we are going to select the RAM chip 3. And if the input to the decoder is 11, we are going to select the RAM chip 4. Now here, as you can see, there is a two component in the memory unit. One is the RAM part and the one is the ROM part. Now we need to know whether we are going to access any memory location from the RAM chip or whether we are going to access any memory location from the ROM part. So for that purpose, we are going to use the address line 10. If the address line 10 is 0, in that case, we are going to enable any one of the 4 RAM chips, and we are going to access any RAM memory location. But if the address line is 1, in that case, we are not going to use the RAM part of the memory, we are going to use the ROM part of the memory, and we will enable the ROM chip. Again, as you see that ROM chip size is of 512 bytes, so obviously we need 9 address lines to select any one of the memory address location. So in case of ROM, we are going to use address bus 1 to 7 to 1 to 9 to select any one of the memory relocation in the ROM chip. This is how we can implement that in a real hardware. Here you can see that read and write controls are going into the all ROM chips in read and write input port respectively. And also you can see that address bus 1 to 7 is going into all RAM and ROM chips, And similarly the address line 9 or 8 are going into the decoder, and if the address line values are 00, in that case decoder output will be 0, and it will go into the CS1 one part of the first RAM chip, and it will enable the first RAM chip. If the decoder output input is 01, in that case decoder output will be 1, and it will enable the second RAM chip. If the decoder output is 2, it will enable the third RAM chip, and if the decoder output is 3, in that case it will go into the CS1 part of the fourth RAM chip, and it will enable the fourth RAM chip. Similarly, you can see the address line 10. If the address line 10 is 0, in that case all 0 will be feed into the input port of all RAM chips CS2 bar input port. So obviously it will enable all the RAM chips. But if the address line 10 is has a value 1, in that case you can observe a AND gate, a NOT gate is there in front of the ROM chip, so it will negate the address line 1 to 0, and it will feed into the CS2 bar portion input port of the ROM chip, and it will enable the ROM chip. Similarly, you can see there is a eight address lines via which eight data buses are there, via which all the RAM or ROM chip will send information. And here in this picture you can see the address line 11 and 16 are unused in here. So this is the picture of a magnetic disk. Here you can see the magnetic disk look like a cylinder. It consists of a set of platters and the read write heads. And as you can see in this picture that this platter or disk stack upon each other and form a magnetic disk. And the read write head can be only one side of the platter or can be both side of the platter. If the information stored in the platter in the both side, then the read write head will be both end of the platter, on the top of it as well as in the below of it. Now a cylinder is a cylindrical intersection through the stack of the platter in a disk centered around the disk plane, which you can see in the vertical black line. Now this platter consists of the tracks and sectors. Now what is tracks? Tracks are the concentric circles on the over the platter, and these concentric circles are nothing but the circular strips of physical data blocks where actually physical data stores. And the sectors are the angular component or slice of the tracks. Like here in this case you can see that red part is basically a sector, and this sector actually helps to locate the data block into the track, and this is how you can access any data block in the track. And for the magnetic disk, the addressing mode precisely used is cylinder head sector.